Hi Jessica, and welcome to the Story Behind Empowered Women series. And I've known you for a couple of years now, isn't it? I think I met you a couple of years ago, and it was in another group that we have worked together in. And I'm fascinated to find out the story. I know about what you do, but I don't know the story behind what you do, and that's what I'm fascinated in. So first of all, can you share with our viewers what it is you do and your story?
Well, I work as a mentor, as a guide, a kind of life transformation guide, I suppose. Coaching is part of it, but it's not all of it. And I tend to work with people who are pretty successful in what they've done in their lives. They've climbed the ladder and ticked rather a lot of the boxes and got to that place called success, and then gone, this doesn't actually make me very happy. And so I tend to do some very kind of deep work. They come with me on retreat and individually, one-on-one, and I work with them to discover the bits of themselves that they've left behind, I suppose, in that journey of climbing the ladder to success. And that success isn't necessarily always kind of corporate job success. It could be success as a mother. It could be success in your own business. But it's when we've followed something and really kind of left ourselves behind. And so it's about coming back to, who am I? What exactly do I really want from life, and how do I get that? And so that's what I tend to do. That's the kind of work I tend to do, and I love it because I think I watch people come alive. You know, they come to me and they're a bit grey and they're tired, and life is just stressful and really busy, and I watch this light come back on.
So, okay, so you I mean, there's lots of questions that would have kind of come into me then. And so it's not just corporate clients, it's people that just have got to a level of success. That's the kind of people that you're working with. But there's a kind of a stagnation, would you say?
Yeah. For example, the person I had come out a couple of weeks ago, she's a mother. She's got children. Her oldest is 12 years old. Been a full-time mother and an author at the same time, and very successful at what she's done. You know, she's loved what she's done, but she felt like she wasn't representing herself anymore. She wasn't living her joys. She wasn't being creative in the way that she wanted to be creative. She ticked the boxes. She thought being an author would be it, and was really disappointed when it wasn't. And neither was just motherhood either. And her kids were growing up and didn't need her so much more. So she came out, and the thing she said afterwards was, I feel as alive as I felt 20 years ago. I've touched back into that part of myself. And, you know, yes, it was about finding a new path forward for her, finding a new career for herself. Although it won't be an employment career, she'll create her own business from what she's decided to do. But it's that whole thing of coming back and pulling all the bits of yourself that have got left along the way, because you followed this is the way you should be doing it, or you followed your peers, that's how everybody else has been doing it. And in those times, we tend to forget to ask our heart, what do we really want? And
that's quite interesting, isn't it? Yeah, I was quite surprised by that, because I assumed on my path that, you get to a level of success and you've kind of got there. And what I've recognized with people around me in that same sort of environment, that they too have said, yeah, hang on a minute, but I've lost something. By doing that, I've compromised a part of me. So is that what you do? Is that how you what do you do this intuitively? How does that work for you when you see people?
Well, I don't have a set process because everybody's unique. And I get people to do just a brief exercise before they come on retreat that really looks at all of their lives and what bits have got missed out, and to set an intention of what they want. So that's the only focus we have. And then it is intuitively, it's purely through conversational. Sometimes I take people up into the mountains in Spain, turn off their phones and computers, and we might go for a long walk up in the mountains and just talk and use the environment that we're in to let go of some stuff. The amount of rocks I've had people throw off mountains that represent things they need to leave behind, just things like that. And it is very much about reclaiming themselves and finding out exactly what bits they want to bring back into their life again. And
So you mentioned the mountains. You mentioned the mountains. You know, for people who don't know what you do, you have a retreat, don't you, in Spain? Whereabouts are you?
Well, I live in the south of Spain, on the coast south of Granada, and I've lived there for 18 years now. That's been part of my journey of kind of going to a different place and following my heart. And when people come on retreat, they come out to Spain, but we actually go up into the Alpujarras, the mountains which is behind me near Granada. And they're beautiful, wonderful mountains. The highest mountain in mainland Spain is in that range where we are. And what it does is it takes you out of your everyday environment. I think it's very hard to look at your life when you're stuck in still dealing with the washing and the shopping and the cooking and everything else and work. And it takes you out of your environment and it allows you to turn around kind of 180 degrees and look back at your life and go, oh, I get it. I get what I've done. I get that those choices I've made have left this part, and those are the bits I need to bring back in. So you get a different perspective on what life is for you right now and where the gap is, the bits that are missing.
Interesting, because I mean, I had a client yesterday who actually lives in Switzerland, and she lives in the mountains. What is it about mountains that inspired you? What is it about that place in particular that drew you there?
There's something very old and ancient, and I think mountains hold ancient wisdom.
Yeah.
I think people being in that kind of environment is very expansive. You know, when you stand on the top of a mountain and you've got a 360-degree view all around you, and you see the world differently. I can remember when I lived in the States, whenever I was having a bad time, I would always go to a place where I could be high and looking at a view, and the world looks different. And at the same time, there's a very kind of solid, wise energy that's in those kind of environments. It's not been touched by human hand very much. It doesn't have technology there. You go up a dirt track in a 4-wheel drive car and you walk on these ancient lands, and I think it's very powerful. And I always say half my job is done when I've got people up the mountains, because it just takes them into a different space and they can then let go of the everyday worries, let go of the everyday concerns, and really tap into who they are.
I guess because we've a lot of our stuff is passed on through ancestry, programs that are positive and negative as well. I guess going into that kind of environment reminds us of our innate ancestry, where those stories were passed on, all the good was passed on, and it sort of strips us back to our blueprint, so to speak, I guess, doesn't it?
It does, and it also shows you the stories you've passed on that you don't want and that don't serve you anymore. We pick up all these stories that I had a client come out this year, and her terminology was, I came with all this baggage and I'm going back with hand luggage. And she'd left all that on the mountain. She left all those shoulds, ought tos, have tos that she'd lived her life by, which had served her. I don't believe there's any mistakes in our lives. I think we do what we need to do to the best of our ability in the moment. And that's great. And we don't have to carry on doing it when we realize that it no longer serves us. And it's giving ourselves permission to change in those moments that I think is so crucial.
So, obviously we know what you do. I mean, it's an incredible environment for you. Do you see clients on a one-to-one? So one client would come out to you, spend a few days on retreat, and you focus totally on that person, do you?
Absolutely. I used to do a group retreat with another coach, and it was a great retreat. But the one thing I realized is that when I was putting my own things together, that I could do more in 2 days with a single person that I could ever do in 7 days with 8 people.
Yeah.
Because I can go so deep. And I've had people say to me, can I come for longer? And I go, no, really, you don't want to. You'll be talked out after 2 days. I work with people afterwards. Always as part of the retreat is a minimum of 4 months continuous support. Because otherwise you go home on this incredible high, and then life crowds in on you again, and you don't make the changes you want. So you have that support every couple of weeks. We have an hour's chat to really just kind of go, okay, where are you? What challenges are you meeting? What have you put in place? What has been problematic? What do we need to shift and change a bit? And that ensures that whatever decisions the person makes on the retreat actually get implemented in life.
And that's quite interesting, isn't it? Because a lot of people go on the workshops and retreats, and then they go back into everyday life and they forget everything that they've learned or they've let go of. And then that just gets reaffirmed again. So with what you're doing is you're keeping those people accountable, reminding them of what they've learned, what they've let go of, and holding that space for them to help them to keep taking right action to move forward with whatever they've learned and whatever right intention they have.
Absolutely. And some have very specific plans of things that they want to change.
Right.
And some people don't necessarily want to, I always say, you'll want to change something. It'll either be external, in which case big changes, maybe change of job, change of where you live, change of all those external factors and the things that are causing stresses in your life, or it'll be an internal shift, which is not necessarily meaning the external is going to change very much, but how you live this life, the you that you bring to this life will shift and change. And sometimes it's a mix of both. So depending on what they've kind of discovered about themselves in those 2 days, the support work is just to support whatever change they've decided to shift and have in their life.
So what is it, that led you to this work? What's the story behind Jessica? Why have you decided to make this your life plan? What is your story?
Well, I've got a bit of a meandering story. I suppose I can look back the kind of the starting point for the beginning of this particular story. I look at my life sometimes, and to be honest, I've got 7 lifetimes in a lifetime. But for this particular one, probably started in the first point was when my moment of when I realised that I ticked all the boxes. This was when, just before I left my marriage, and many years ago now, 25, 30 years ago probably, and I literally had ticked all the boxes. I've been given this blueprint: do this and you'll be happy. Get married. I had the thatched cottage with the roses over the door. I had a really good income. I had lots of holidays. I was Material Girl 101. I had all the stuff, all the modern stuff. And I remember driving my new car up the hill, overlooking this little hamlet where my village was, and looking down on my thatched cottage and going, oh God, I'm miserable. And I was furious at that point because I had worked really hard to tick all those boxes. I was only 28, 29 when that happened, and I was like, I was just so angry. And that was the beginning of me leaving, and I literally packed 2 suitcases and left and went, okay, I've got to start again. And
that was that moment you just decided to change your life, and it was that radical.
That was radical. And then I went on my own personal journey of discovery. It was in those times when lots of personal development courses that kept you up till 3 o'clock in the morning, and I had you screaming on the floor, and all that kind of stuff was happening. And so all those cathartic things and these personal realizations for myself. And then I discovered my own spiritual path and ended up living and working in an ashram for 4 years, which was an incredible experience of self-discovery, self-inquiry. And when I left there, I knew the thing that I wanted, and I didn't know how this was going to look particularly, was that I wanted to be able to give back what I'd learned. There was something in me that says, I've had all this incredible experience now in life, and I've had these new understandings, and how can I give that back? And I came across this whole idea of coaching at the time, and I thought, oh, that's great, I'll do that. And we'd moved to Spain by then. We'd left America, which is where the ashram headquarters was, that I was there for 4 years. Come back, started living in Spain. I didn't have any money to do any training or anything like that at all, but I absolutely knew that this was it. This is what I had to do. And so I started.
What led you to Spain though? I mean, from the US to Spain, it's quite kind of.
Yes, well, we left the US, and a friend of mine had a cortico in Spain, and he said, go and live in the cortico, it's fine, and just have a bit of a break before, because we were going back to London to go back into our corporate jobs and all that kind of thing. Sure. And so we were in Spain, and we were staying with some friends. We'd come down to where we live now, and we were staying with friends. And these friends were the people who originally introduced me to the spiritual path that I was on and the ashram that I've been to. So we kind of were coming from the same kind of philosophy, I suppose, of life. And we were walking through the orange groves together one day, and we were saying, oh, it's lovely down here, we'd love to have a house down here, and we'd come down, and my friend said to me, you know, there's a whole load of empty villas that people in London own, and they're here for only 4 weeks of the year. If you want to be here, why don't you just be here and come here? And as she's saying this, there's a Spanish workman that's walking towards it with "Just do it" scrawled across his t-shirt. Like,
what a message.
It's a sign. And we just did it. We went back. I packed up one car in the UK. Beatrice packed up a car in Switzerland. We drove down to Spain and started a brand new life in Spain together.
Oh, fantastic.
And it was just a nicer prospect than London. And it was a bit, I mean, I say to my clients, don't be quite headless chicken as I was. You know, a bit more planning would probably have helped, because the first 2 years were incredibly challenging. We had very little money. I worked as a gardener because I wasn't trained as a coach at that point. I earned €7 an hour, but we got by. And then I started to go, okay, I need to work out what I want to do. And that's when I came across this idea of coaching. And that came from a chance conversation with somebody I knew. I said, I just want to do something that passes on what I've learned. I've had so many incredible experiences in life. And he said, oh, you should look at this coaching thing. So I did. Couldn't afford the training, didn't even have the money to go back to England to do the training course. And I was chatting with a guy that I had just met through a friend. And I was kind of like bending his ear and saying, I found this incredible thing and it just feels so right. And it feels like it's the best thing that I want to do. And he rang me up the next day and he said to me, you don't know this, he said, but I am a coach and I also train coaches. And he said, I have never come across somebody who is so right to do this work in the world. So I'm going to train you for free.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
So he did. For a whole year, he trained me, he mentored me, he handed over every single exercise he'd ever used with a client on his computer, and he just absolutely just put it into my lap and said, there you go.
What a gift.
So that was a huge gift. So that got me started, and that was 16 years ago now. Gosh. And then I went on to do other trainings, and then the retreats started. I started probably about 8 years ago, because I realized that as much as I love doing the coaching on the phone and supporting people on the phone, I wanted to go deeper with people. I wanted for them who had that moment like me when I looked down on my house and went, oh my God, I've got all this and I am miserable. I wanted to be able to really work deeply with people to unearth what is it, or who are they that they want to be that they're not being. And so that kind of deepened the work that I do, and it's felt great. And it's you know, I have a lot of people who want to do it now, because I think the world is in this chaotic kind of place that we're in right now, and it's making a lot of people question. And I think it's also making a lot of people question their own personal spirituality, whether they use that word spirituality, the who am I, the connection they feel to themselves. I think a lot of people are questioning that. And so my work has an element of that, because I come from that on my side of how I look at the life and how I look at the world. That's going to inform the work that I do with other people, of course.
And I think that's the thing, isn't it? There's a huge richness that comes from, you know, incorporating that spirituality into your coaching, because a lot of coaching doesn't actually incorporate that. It skips over the surface, and we can't ignore that, because we are, you know, the spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical. And without, you know, looking at all four aspects, we're missing a crucial part of our innate self, aren't we?
Absolutely. And the thing is that the coaching modality is not necessarily designed for that. You know, I always say if anybody kind of anybody official looked into my coaching sessions, they'd be horrified, because I don't just ask questions, which is the real coaching model of just asking questions and deepening the questions, because sometimes people who come to me, they want input.
Yeah.
They want new ideas. They want their mind opened to possibilities. And it's not that I'm teaching them and saying, this is how your world should be. But what I'm doing is that I'm talking about how I see my world, and they see themselves in that. So they take away what they need out of the things that I might be saying. So which is why I don't just call myself a coach. I say coaching is one of the aspects that I do. but I'm a mentor and I'm a guide as well, because I have been there and done that and got the t-shirt.
Yeah.
And so I know what that looks like, and I know what that journey of who am I? Because it's a huge question that we're asking ourselves when we get to that point where we know what we've got isn't working. The basic question that we're asking yourself is, who am I? And who am I is on many different levels. It's who am I as in my role in the world, and who kind of like, who am I as a soul? What is my journey? What is my purpose here in the world? And people, although they have that question, they might not be able to articulate that question. And I think that's where a lot of personal confusion, and I think it was very interesting. I had a friend of mine who wrote a dissertation recently on the failure of modern religion, because it's not answering that who am I question, and how consumerism is becoming the modern religion, because it's about, well, if I don't have a connection inside myself, I must have something out there that makes me feel alive, or makes me feel like I know who I am. And I think that's a huge problem. And then we have what goes on, and all the celebrity press and everything like that just feeds that whole, you've got to have this, you've got to have this, you've got to have this. And like I said, I was Material Girl 101 before I had my wake up call and went, well, this doesn't work.
Yeah.
But the problem is that there's not a lot of alternative. There's more alternative now, and the kind of work that you and I are doing is that alternative. But on the mainstream level, that it needs to come out on that level, because there's a lot of people out there asking a lot of questions, of which there are very few answers in the mainstream media, particularly.
And do you think, I mean, and I guess that's the sort of treadmill. We get very caught up in that. Many people are frightened of facing themselves, finding the truth. What would you suggest to people who perhaps have lots, like yourself, they think they've got everything that they're supposed to have, the family, the house, the car, the work, all that kind of thing. What if anyone's watching this and they have that self-doubt that they should be looking at themselves or looking at part of their truth that they've been ignoring for some time? What would you suggest to help them to actually even start questioning it, or make a step towards discovering who they really are?
Well, I think you've just named it there. It's taking that first step. See, a lot of people that I talk with, they have a bit of a fear around this. I remember somebody I had on retreat this year. We started our first session on retreat. I have to tell you, I'm mildly terrified right now. And I'm like, that's okay.
Yeah.
Because your ego does not want you to have this conversation right now, because you're going to be changing your life. Your soul is really happy, even though you might not be able to connect to that right now. And I think the thing is, and what I said to her is like, nobody's going to make you do anything you don't want to do. Just because you're having this conversation doesn't mean that you have to take steps that you're not comfortable with. You will know your level of comfort and how much you can stretch that. And the last thing I say to people, and this is a really key thing, there is no way I want you to make a decision that's going to panic you. Because if you do that, you're going to crawl back really quickly into that comfort zone and never move again. I said, I want people to stretch outside just a little bit and feel, how does that feel? How does that go? And then stretch a little bit more. I have seen time and time again, people come on retreat, and I'm on one level, I'm watching, like, go, yeah, you could go much more than that. But I never say that, because it's totally up to them. And then probably 2 or 3 months after the retreat, they kind of go, I think I want to maybe spread my wings a bit more than I thought. And I go, yeah, okay, so what does that look like? And then we look at that. But it has to be on their terms. The control is always in their hands. So if somebody's listening to this and feeling like, oh, I think I need to do this, but it scares the hell out of me, it's like, that's okay, but start the conversation at least. Start exploring what could be possible. And only when you're comfortable with taking those steps do you need to take the steps, and then it'll be an easy step. It won't feel like this, it'll just feel like the natural next step in life.
And I guess that because that does seem to be a common thread that runs through people's minds. Sometimes they look at this and they think, but if I change my life, it's going to be scary. I can't possibly see how I can do this. Because they're already in that program, they can't see the wood for the trees. So it is actually about, I mean, this is how I always say it. It's just pushing the parameters very slowly of who you are. But as you say, you wouldn't do anything that would hurt you, or it's always about something that is at least something that you're able to achieve, to actually push that. And we are capable of, as human beings, to keep pushing the parameters of who we are, aren't we?
Absolutely. And I think, like I said, it's like sometimes, people feel like, oh, I'm going to have to leave my job and leave my house and leave my relationship and leave people. Like, no, whoa. Because sometimes, and often, it's actually about who we're being in our job, who we're being in our relationship, who we're being in our family. Who are we bringing to that? What understandings are we bringing to that? How do we look at that world? What do we make that world mean? And so that can bring a huge shift in how you feel about your life. And I've seen for many people that very little outwardly has changed, but inwardly there's been a huge shift. And the bottom line is we're looking for happiness, whatever that means for each of us. We're looking for happiness, whether that's spiritual contentment, whether that's joy within a family, whether that's achievement within a role in a job. We're looking for happiness. But happiness is an inside job. It's not an outside job. Happiness doesn't come from the job or the family or the relationship. Happiness comes from within. So when we've tapped into ourselves and our true selves, and we've tapped in and we're connecting to our heart and our intuition, we can find that happiness because it's already there. It's just got lost. It's an inside job every time.
So once people find themselves, they have that fulfillment, which then leads to happiness. So it is about, not just ticking the boxes for the sake of ticking the boxes, but actually finding who we truly are, and that is becoming the authentic self. And you give that clarity to them, because a lot of their underlying assumptions and fears are often misguided. They can only see possible solutions from the fears that they're going through anyway. So you give them that space, you give them that time and clarity, and you can mirror back to them what they eventually can see for themselves. Is that how it is?
Yeah, and we question those limiting beliefs and those assumptions, and it's that whole thing about, so often we give away our authority over our life to somebody else. It was interesting. I was having a conversation yesterday about, but what will everybody think? And I'm like, interesting. Are you going to allow everybody to make your decisions? Are you going to allow everybody's thinking about you govern the decisions that you're going to make about your own life? And this person said, never thought of it like that. She was like, oh, and I went, yeah. Every time we go, what does everybody think? We hand over authority to somebody else.
And we lose our power in that sense, don't we?
Totally, we lose our power.
Wow. It's a good way of putting it.
Yeah, and how that thing of empowerment comes from taking back our authority and going, actually, I don't give a rip what anybody thinks. This feels right to me. This feels right. It's not a rational thinking process. It's a feeling. Because when you tap into your feelings, you're listening to your heart, and your heart, in my world, is the spokesperson of your soul. So sometimes it's not logical. I know some of the best decisions I've made in my life, like going to Spain, for example, have zero logic in it. If I'd listened to my head, I would be in a corporate job in London right now. It wouldn't be. But my heart was like, yes. When that Just Do It t-shirt walked past, and my heart was going, yay, it's cheering. And I'm like, okay, got to listen to that, because I'd learnt by that time in my life that actually that's what you have to listen to. That's the bit of you that's guiding you. And it's not necessarily going to be safe, and it's not necessarily going to be easy, but there's the biggest growth, the biggest empowerment, and the biggest joy in there too.
And I guess this is the thing. Do you think it's because you were able to see the sign because you've done the work on yourself in the ashram? Or do you think it's possibly that signs are shouting at us all the time, and it's just whether we're capable of seeing it or not, or whether we want to connect with that, we want to acknowledge it? Because a lot of people I recognize say, yeah, really looking back in hindsight, I saw the signs. So perhaps it's because you'd done all that work on you, you were ready to acknowledge that, and it wasn't such a illogical decision to make in the end, because your heart was far more in control of your destiny than your head was at that time.
Absolutely, and I think you have to have a certain amount of self-awareness to do that.
Yeah.
I'm also a great believer that, you know, not always the same opportunities, but similar opportunities that will hold the same kind of personal evolution will keep coming round till we see them.
Yeah.
So there's no mistakes that you missed the last ones. If I look back through my life, I could have made changes in my life maybe years earlier.
Right.
But I wasn't ready to hear them. I wasn't ready to see them. And there's also something about, you have to have a certain level of self-esteem to be able to listen and take action and trust. Because, like I said, there's no guarantees when you're listening to your heart. You can't rationally go, well, this is a good idea because this, and this. You're going, this is a good idea because I have no idea why this is a good idea, but it just feels right. You know?
Yeah.
And that takes a bit of practice.
Yeah.
And I'm always saying to people when we talk about intuition, it's like, don't try and follow your intuition on the big life-changing stuff if you've never listened to it before. Listen to it when it tells you to go and check whether the oven is still on.
Yes.
Listen to it when it reminds you that actually you need to do something for somebody today. Listen to it when you get this hit to give a friend a call, and you give them a call and they go, oh my God, I just so needed to speak to you. Start to play with your intuition and listen to it on a daily basis about the everyday stuff, because it's always there guiding you. It's not just there for the big stuff. It's there all the time. And for me, I'm constantly saying to myself or my intuition, thank you, internally, because I get these prompts and I hear them now every day. So life gets very much easier to live when you're in tune with that side of yourself.
That's great sound advice, because a lot of people do question that and say, but how do I know when my intuition's talking to me? But you've got to make a start. You've got to do it. And by practicing with the small things, eventually the big things become as easy anyway.
Exactly.
So
it is.
Go on. It's all right.
It is about growing your awareness. It's not like you flick a switch and suddenly, oh yes, I'm a very aware person. It's about trial and error. It's about kind of having a willingness to explore, having a willingness to make mistakes. You know, as I said, I don't think there is such a thing as a mistake. I like to break the word down into a mistake. You know, when they shoot a movie, they do lots of takes.
Yes.
You know, and they don't say, well, that was a mistake. They just say, let's do another take. So all the things we do in life that we might label them as a mistake and wrong, it's like, no, it's just a mistake. So let's take it again, do it again, and learn from that and move on. Learn from that and move on. This journey of life is about learning. It's about growing your awareness and learning about yourself and learning who you want to be in the world.
And we learn a lot of our lessons and a lot about ourselves through those the decisions we make that aren't so good for us, as you say, the mistakes. So I think it's always a win-win situation, because there's so much growth in those moments, aren't there?
Exactly.
So if anybody wanted to get in touch with you and find out more about your retreats, because there's always stuff, I always see posts and things in magazines about your amazing retreat. How can people get in touch with you, Jessica?
Well, I've got a website, which is jessicamcgregorjohnson.com, and I think you've got the link in the bio that I sent you as well.
Yes.
So the best thing is to have a look at the website, and on the website there's a form at the bottom it says book a discovery session, and that session is completely free, and we just arrange time to have a chat and really just kind of have an initial conversation about where are you, what do you think you're looking for. am I the person who can help you? And you know, there's no obligation to go any further than that. So that's the best way to do it, really, is to just set up a time to have a chat with me. I'm happy to have a chat with anybody who's interested and wants to know more. And then if a retreat feels great, then we can arrange it. Or sometimes people just want to do the phone work because they can't get away or for whatever reason, and that's also an option. So yes, the website has all the details on there as well.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for being part of this today, and it's fascinating. I could talk to you for hours, Jessica. So I look forward to seeing this video going out. So thank you very much indeed.
Well, thank you very much. I've enjoyed it. It's been fun.
Thank you, Jessica. Bye for now. Bye.
Bye.